The twin suns of Kepler 442b cast their golden light across the crystal towers of the Valani homeworld. Nimra pressed her pale blue hands against the observation deck window, watching the peaceful city below. The crystalline buildings caught the sunlight and threw rainbow patterns across the streets, where her people walked in quiet harmony. But today, something was wrong. The Emergency Council had been meeting for 3 days straight. The holographic displays showed the same terrible message over and over again. The harvester swarm was coming. Nimra turned away from the window as the council chamber doors opened. High Counselor Zethkar emerged, his usually calm face twisted with worry. His silver robes, which normally flowed like water, now seemed heavy on his thin shoulders. "The vote is complete," Zethkar announced to the gathered scientists and advisors. "We will not send the message to Earth." The room fell silent. Nimra felt her heart sink. She had spent weeks preparing the transmission, learning about the strange world called Earth and its dangerous inhabitants. The other council members called it a death world, a place where the very air and water could kill most galactic species. "High Counselor," Nimra said, stepping forward, "please reconsider. Our defenses cannot stop the swarm. We need help." Zethkar's eyes, large and dark like all Vellani, fixed on her. "You ask us to contact monsters, young one. The humans are Deathworlders. They solve problems with violence and death. That is not our way." "But our way is failing," Nimra replied. She activated her datapad, showing the star charts. Red dots marked the 12 Vellani colonies that had already fallen to the swarm. "Look at these worlds. Look at what happened to them." The swarm consumed everything. Every crystal, every building, every living thing. Nothing remains but dead. Rock. The other council members shifted uncomfortably. They had all seen the reports. The harvester swarm was unlike anything they had faced before. It was not a natural enemy that could be reasoned with or understood. It was pure destruction, mechanical and endless. "The humans have technology," Nimra continued. "They have weapons. They have experience fighting threats like this. Yes, they are violent, but maybe that is what we need now." Counselor Creolon stepped forward. He was older than Zethkar, his skin more translucent with age. "I have studied the human records, child. They destroy their own kind for resources. They poison their own world for profit. They wage war for concepts that do not even exist. How can we trust such beings?" "Because they survive," Nimra said simply. "Their world tries to kill them every day, and they not only live but thrive. They have turned their entire planet into a weapon against anything that threatens them. The swarm is a threat to all life in the galaxy. If anyone can stop it, it would be them." The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued that contacting Earth would be like inviting one monster to fight another. Others worried that the humans might be worse than the swarm itself. But as the discussions went on, more reports came in. The swarm was moving faster than expected. It would reach their homeworld in less than 6 months. Finally, Zethkar called for silence. "What exactly are you proposing, Nimra?" The young scientist activated her main display. It showed the quantum crystal technology that was the pride of Vellani civilization. The crystals could store enormous amounts of energy and process information at speeds that made even their most advanced computers look primitive. "We offer them this," she said. "Our quantum crystal technology. It could advance their civilization by hundreds of years. In exchange, they help us stop the swarm." The room erupted in shocked voices. The quantum crystals were their most precious resource, the foundation of their entire society. To give such technology to aliens, especially violent ones, seemed like madness. "It is better than extinction," Nimra said over the noise. "If we all die, the technology dies with us. If we survive, we can rebuild. We can learn to live in a galaxy with humans. Zethkar considered this for a long moment. Outside, the first of the 3 moons was rising, casting its pale light through the crystal walls. And if the humans decide to keep our technology and let us die anyway, then we die having tried everything, Nimra replied. But I have studied their history. They are violent, yes, but they also protect those who help them. They have a concept they call loyalty. If we prove useful to them, they will protect us. The final vote was close. 7 council members supported sending the message. 6 opposed it. Zethkar cast the deciding vote, his voice heavy with resignation. Send the message, he said. May the ancestors forgive us for what we are about to unleash. Nimra worked through the night to prepare the transmission. She encoded it with mathematical principles that any advanced civilization would understand, and added their language database and cultural information. Most importantly, she included the quantum crystal specifications and the current location of the harvester swarm dot as the message shot out into space at faster than light speed. Nimra wondered if they had made the right choice. The humans were an unknown factor in galactic politics. Most species avoided their space entirely. Those who had encountered them told stories of incredible violence and ruthless efficiency. But the harvester swarm was known. It was death, pure and simple. Given a choice between the unknown and certain destruction, Nimra believed they had chosen correctly. The message would take 3 weeks to reach Earth, 3 weeks to discover if the monsters of the galaxy would help them, or if they had simply traded one form of destruction for another dot. As Nimra finally left the communications center, she looked up at the stars and whispered a prayer to the ancestors. Let them come quickly, she said, and let them be merciful. She had no way of knowing that mercy was not something the humans of Earth had learned from their hostile world. And soon, the Valani would discover exactly what it meant to ask for help from Deathworlders. The Deep Space Communications Array on Luna picked up the alien signal at exactly 14:32, Earth Standard Time. Dr. Lisa Grant was reviewing maintenance reports when her computer started flashing urgent alerts. She had been waiting for something like this her entire career, but she still felt her hands shake as she pulled up the transmission. The message was beautiful in its mathematical precision. Prime numbers, universal constants, and geometric patterns that any intelligent species would recognize. But as Lisa decoded the deeper layers, her excitement turned to concern. This was not a greeting from a curious neighbor. This was a cry. FOR help. Within an hour, the message had reached Admiral Rick Stone at Colonial Defense Command. The Admiral was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his early days as a ship engineer. He read the translation twice before calling. An emergency meeting. So let me understand this, Admiral Stone said, looking around the conference table. These aliens are offering us technology that could revolutionize our entire civilization. And all they want in return is for us to fight some kind of machine army that has been eating planets. Commander Jake Morrison leaned forward. He was younger than the Admiral, with dark hair and the kind of intense eyes that came from too many combat missions. That's correct, sir. The Velani have been trying to stop this harvester swarm for months. They've lost 12 colonies already. And they think we can succeed where they failed? Asked Major Amy Walsh. She was a small woman with blonde hair, but everyone in the room knew she had led some of the most dangerous missions in human space. What makes them think we're any different? Dr. Lisa Grant pulled up her analysis. They call us Deathworlders, Major. Apparently, Earth has a reputation in the galaxy as being unusually hostile to life. Most aliens consider us dangerous because we evolved in such a violent world. The room fell quiet. Admiral Stone had fought in the colony wars and seen what humans could do when pushed to extremes. The idea that other species might fear them was both flattering and disturbing. "What do we know about these Vellani?" he asked. "They appear to be a peaceful species," Lisa continued. "Their society is based on harmony and cooperation. They have advanced technology, but they seem to have no real military force. Their weapons are designed for defense only." Major Walsh smiled grimly. "No wonder they're losing. You can't fight a war with defensive weapons." "There's something else," Lisa said. "They're offering us quantum crystal technology. Our scientists have been working on quantum computing for decades without success. This could advance our technology by centuries." Admiral Stone stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the blue curve of Earth hanging in the black sky. "What kind of timeline are we looking at?" "The swarm will reach their homeworld in 5 months," Jake said. "If we're going to help them, we need to move fast. And if we don't help them, then an entire species dies, and we lose the chance to get technology that could make us the dominant power in the galaxy." The Admiral turned back to the group. "I want a first contact team ready in 72 hours. Morrison, you'll lead the diplomatic mission. Walsh, start planning a military response. And Lisa, I want you to learn everything you can about these Vellani." 3 days later, the U.S. Defiant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vellani system. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the alien world grow larger on the main screen. It was beautiful, covered in blue oceans and green continents, with 2 small moons orbiting close to the surface. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer. "It's coming from the planet's surface." "Put it through," Jake ordered. The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at an alien face. The Vellani were humanoid, but clearly not human. Their skin was pale blue, their eyes were large and dark, and they moved with a grace that seemed almost liquid. "I am High Counselor Zethkar," the alien said in perfect English. "Welcome to our world, humans of Earth. We are grateful that you have come." Jake stepped forward. "I am Commander Jake Morrison, representing the United Earth Government. We received your message, and we're here to help." The relief on Zethkar's face was obvious. "Thank you, Commander. We have prepared a place for you to land. There is much we need to discuss." The landing site was a crystal platform near the capital city. As Jake and his team stepped out of their shuttle, they were struck by the beauty of the Vellani world. The air was sweet and clean. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, and the crystal buildings seemed to glow with their own inner light. But Jake noticed other things too. The Vellani who greeted them were thin and fragile-looking. They moved carefully, as if they were afraid of hurting themselves. Their technology was advanced, but seemed designed for comfort rather than durability. Dr. Lisa Grant was fascinated by everything she saw. She had studied alien cultures for years, but this was her first time meeting another intelligent species. The Vellani were clearly more advanced than humans in many ways, but they seemed almost childlike in their innocence. "Your world is peaceful," she observed to Nimra, the young scientist who had first suggested contacting Earth. "Yes," Nimra replied. "We have not known war for over 1,000 years. That is why the swarm is so dangerous to us. We do not know how to fight such enemies." "But you do," said Krielon, the military advisor. He was studying Jake and his team with obvious unease. "Your species has been fighting since it learned to walk. That is why we called you." Jake felt the weight of the alien's gaze. "We fight when we have to, but we also protect those who help us." That evening, the Vellani Council presented their formal offer. The quantum crystal technology was even more advanced than Earth's scientists had hoped. It could store vast amounts of energy, process information at impossible speeds, and even manipulate matter at the atomic level. "This technology could change everything for us," Lisa whispered to Jake. "With these crystals, We could build ships that travel faster than light, computers that think like humans, and weapons that could crack planets. And all they want is for us to stop the swarm, Jake replied. It seems too good to be true. But as Jake looked around at the peaceful Valani and their beautiful world, he began to understand. These people had never known real violence. They had no concept of the kind of war that humans were capable of waging. They thought they were hiring soldiers, but they were actually unleashing something much more dangerous. Jake opened his communicator and sent a message back to Earth. Admiral Stone, we have a deal. The Valani technology is everything we hoped for and more. But sir, I need you to understand something. These people have no idea what they're asking us to become. They're about to learn why the galaxy fears Deathworlders. The response came back within hours. Admiral Stone's voice was grim, but determined. Understood, Commander. The fleet is already moving. We'll be there in 2 weeks. Jake looked out at the Crystal City and its peaceful inhabitants. In 2 weeks, this world would see human warships in its skies. The Valani thought they were being saved. They had no idea that they were about to witness the birth of a new galactic power, one that would reshape the universe according to the brutal lessons learned on a small, violent world called Earth. The human fleet arrived like a storm made of metal and fire. Captain Ben Taylor watched from the bridge of the UES Retribution as his ships dropped out of hyperspace around the Valani homeworld. 50 warships, each one bristling with weapons that could level cities, formed a perfect attack formation in the space above the crystal planet. Sir, reported the weapons officer, all ships are reporting ready status. We have enough firepower here to crack a moon. Ben nodded grimly. Let's hope we don't need to use it all. On the planet's surface, the Valani watched in shock as the human fleet filled their skies. They had expected help, but nothing like this. The human ships were massive, dark things that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Every surface was covered with gun turrets, missile pods, and energy weapons. High Counselor Zethkar stood on the observation deck of the council building, his face pale with worry. What have we done? He whispered to himself. Nimra stood beside him, equally disturbed. They look like they're ready to fight a war against the entire galaxy. Perhaps they are, said Krialan, joining them at the window. I have been studying their ship designs. These vessels are not just weapons. They are built to survive in the kind of combat that would destroy our entire fleet in minutes. Down in the Human Command Center, Major Amy Walsh was briefing her officers. The room was filled with soldiers in black combat armor, their faces hard and professional. These were not the peaceful diplomats the Valani had met before. These were Earth's warriors, and they had come to do what they did best. The Harvester Swarm is 3 days out, Amy announced, pointing to the tactical display. Intelligence indicates approximately 10,000 individual units, ranging from small fighters to massive factory ships. They move in perfect coordination and show no mercy to anything in their path. Colonel Steve Parker, a big man with scars on his face and arms, raised his hand. What about civilian evacuation? The Valani have cities full of non-combatants. The Valani don't evacuate, Amy replied. They've never fought a war like this. They think their crystal shields will protect them. Will they? Asked Dr. Nina Roberts, the weapons specialist who had come to study Valani technology. Not against. What's coming? Amy said flatly. The swarm doesn't take prisoners. It consumes everything organic and strip mines everything else. If we don't stop it completely, everyone on this planet dies. Meanwhile, Dr. Carl Hayes was working in a laboratory deep beneath the Valani capital. He had been studying the quantum crystal technology for weeks, but now he was doing something that horrified the Valani scientists who watched him work. You cannot do this, protested Yiltra, the Velani cultural attach. These crystals are meant to heal, to create, to preserve life. You are turning them into weapons of destruction. Carl looked up from his work. He was a thin man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his hands moved with the precision of someone who had been building weapons for decades. These crystals can focus energy in ways we never imagined. A single modified crystal can power a cannon that could punch through a starship hull. But that is not what they are for, Yiltra insisted. Our ancestors created this technology to make life better, not to destroy it. Your ancestors never faced the harvester swarm, Carl replied coldly. If you want to survive, you need to accept that your technology is going to be used for war. That's the price of asking Deathworlders for help. The first battle came sooner than expected. The harvester swarm's advanced scouts arrived a day early, dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. They were sleek, predatory machines that moved with mechanical precision toward the human fleet. Captain Ben Taylor watched them approach on his tactical display. All ships, battle stations. Let's show these machines what Earth's children can do. The battle was unlike anything the Velani had ever seen. The human ships moved like predators, using their superior speed and firepower to tear through the swarm. Scouts, energy beams and missile salvos lit up the darkness of space, and within minutes, the mechanical invaders were nothing but drifting debris. But the humans were not satisfied with simple victory. Colonel Steve Parker led boarding parties onto the damaged swarm ships, using fusion charges and kinetic weapons to rip through the alien machinery. The soldiers moved with a berserker fury that shocked the Velani observers. They fight like they enjoy it, Krialan observed, watching the battle footage. They do, replied Commander Jake Morrison, who had remained on the planet as a liaison. Humans are predators. We evolved to hunt and kill. War is not just something we do. It's something we're built for. The main swarm fleet arrived 2 days later. It was a sight that would have driven the Velani to despair. Thousands of ships, each one a perfect killing machine, arranged in formations that spoke of cold, mechanical intelligence. The largest ships were the size of cities, their hulls covered with construction equipment designed to strip entire planets down to bedrock. But the humans were ready. They had spent the time preparing, not just their weapons, but their strategy. General Frank Miller had arrived with the fleet, and he brought with him decades of experience in total warfare. The swarm thinks like a machine, he explained to the assembled commanders. It follows patterns, seeks efficiency, minimizes waste. But machines don't understand desperation. They don't know how to fight an enemy that's willing to sacrifice everything to win. The battle for the Velani homeworld lasted 18 hours. The humans used every weapon in their arsenal, from antimatter torpedoes to kinetic kill vehicles that struck with the force of nuclear bombs. They fought with a combination of high technology and primitive savagery that the swarm's programming could not understand. Dr. Nina Roberts had weaponized the Velani healing crystals into devastating energy beams that could slice through swarm. Armor like paper. The modified terraforming tools became planet crackers that could split asteroids in half. Everything the Velani had created for peace was transformed into instruments of war. The turning point came when the humans abandoned conventional tactics entirely. Instead of fighting the swarm in orderly formations, they began ramming damaged ships into enemy vessels, using their own vessels as guided missiles. The swarm's mechanical minds could not process this level of suicidal determination. They're not just fighting to win, Yiltra said, watching the battle in horror. They're fighting to make sure nothing else can ever threaten them again. By the end of the battle, the swarm's advanced fleet was destroyed, but the cost was terrible. 1/3 of the human ships were damaged or destroyed, and thousands of soldiers had died in the boarding actions. But the humans showed no sorrow. Only grim satisfaction. Captain Van Taylor stood on his damaged bridge, looking out at the debris field that had once been the Harvester Swarm. "Send a message to Earth," he ordered. "Tell them we've won the first battle." But this is just the beginning. The Vellani had been saved, but as they watched the human fleet regrouping for the next phase of the war, they began to realize that their saviors were not like them. The humans did not fight to preserve life or maintain peace. They fought to dominate, to ensure that nothing could ever threaten them again. And now, having accepted human help, the Vellani were part of that system. They had thought they were hiring protectors, but they were beginning to understand that they had actually become clients of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Deathworlders had come to save them, but salvation came with a price that the peaceful Vellani were only beginning to comprehend. The human fleet had tracked the Harvester Swarm to its source, but what they found was beyond even their expectations. The ancient factory ship hung in the void between stars, a massive construct the size of a small moon. Its hull was covered with mechanical arms that processed raw materials from consumed worlds, turning planets into more ships for the endless swarm. Captain Joe Barnes stood in the briefing room of the U.S. Retribution, studying the reconnaissance data. He was a compact man with dark hair and the kind of calm demeanor that came from years of dangerous missions. Around him, the other Special Forces commanders listened as Dr. Kate Sullivan explained their target. "The factory ship is the heart of the swarm," Kate said, her fingers dancing over the holographic display. "It's been operating for thousands of years, maybe longer. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of the swarm's technology comes from this one source." "And if we destroy it?" asked Major Amy Walsh. "The entire swarm dies with it," Kate replied. "But it won't be easy. The ship is defended by millions of automated systems. Getting close enough to plant a virus in its core computer will be a suicide mission." Chief Engineer Dan Cooper, who had been working to integrate Vellani technology into human systems, leaned forward. "What kind of virus are we talking about?" Kate smiled grimly. "Something that will turn the swarm's greatest strength against itself. The machines share a collective intelligence, right? They think as one mind. If we can corrupt that mind, make it turn the swarm against itself, then we can watch them destroy each other." The plan was simple in concept, but terrifying in execution. A small team would infiltrate the factory ship, fight their way to the central processing core, and upload the virus directly into the swarm's collective consciousness. The chances of survival were essentially zero. "I'll lead the mission," Captain Joe Barnes announced. "I've done infiltration work before, and I know how to get in and out of places that don't want me there." "You won't be getting out," Dr. Kate Sullivan pointed out. "The factory ship will detect the virus within minutes of upload. It will throw everything it has at stopping you. Then we'll just have to work fast," Joe replied with a shrug. On the Vellani homeworld, the news of the suicide mission created a crisis in the council chambers. High Counselor Zethkar paced back and forth, his robes flowing behind him like liquid silver. "This is madness," he declared. "We asked for help, not for these humans to throw away their lives for us." Nimra, who had become the unofficial liaison between the Vellani and the human forces, shook her head. "You don't understand them, High Counselor. Humans don't see death the same way we do. They see it as a tool, something to be used when necessary. But surely there must be another way," protested Yiltra. "Some peaceful solution, some way to negotiate with the swarm." Commander Jake Morrison, who had been listening to the debate, finally spoke up. "The swarm has been operating for millennia. It has consumed hundreds of worlds, killed trillions of beings. There is no negotiating with something like that. It understands only consumption and destruction." "So you will respond with consumption and destruction of your own?" Zethkar asked. "If that's what it takes," Jake replied simply. "That's why." You called us, remember? Because we're the monsters who can fight other monsters. The mission launched 3 days later. Captain Joe Barnes led a team of 50 volunteers, all of them knowing they would not return. The Velani watched in amazement as humans volunteered for certain death with the same casual attitude they might show for a routine maintenance. Job. The infiltration ship was a modified stealth vessel packed with explosives and enough firepower to level a city. As it approached the factory ship, the swarm's defenses activated. Energy beams and missile swarms filled the space around the ancient construct, but the human ship pressed forward with suicidal determination. Hull breach on Deck 3, reported the ship's computer in a calm voice. Life support failing on Decks 1 and 2. Keep us moving, Joe ordered, ignoring the smoke and sparks filling the bridge. We just need to get close enough to ram the outer hull. The ship struck the factory ship with the force of a meteor. The impact killed half the infiltration team instantly, but the survivors picked themselves up and began fighting their way through the twisted wreckage toward the core. The inside of the factory ship was a nightmare of mechanical precision. Automated systems worked constantly to process raw materials, while defense drones swarmed through the corridors like angry insects. The humans fought with a combination of high-tech weapons and primitive savagery that the swarm's programming could not understand. They're not stopping, observed Zarian, the swarm's central intelligence, as it watched the humans advance. They know they will die, yet they continue. This behavior is illogical. Dr. Kate Sullivan was already uploading the virus when the first wave of heavy defense units arrived. These were not the small drones they had been fighting, but massive constructs designed to repel boarding parties. They moved with mechanical precision, their weapon systems targeting the human infiltrators with perfect accuracy. How much longer? Joe shouted over the sound of gunfire. 2 more minutes, Kate replied, her fingers flying over the interface. The virus is almost fully integrated. We don't have 2 minutes, Joe said, looking at the approaching wall of metal death. Everyone who can still fight, form a perimeter. We hold this position no matter what. The battle in the factory ship's core was brief but incredibly violent. The humans used everything they had, from fusion grenades to bare hands, to hold back the swarm's defenders. One by one, they fell, but each death bought Kate a few more seconds to complete the upload. Chief Engineer Dan Cooper, who had volunteered for the mission despite being more scientist than soldier, used his knowledge of Velani technology to overload the ship's power systems. The resulting explosion killed dozens of defense units, but it also mortally wounded him. Upload complete, Kate announced as the last of the virus code entered the swarm's collective consciousness. It's done. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The virus spread through the swarm's network like wildfire, corrupting the collective intelligence that had controlled the mechanical army for millennia. Ships began firing on each other. Factory systems started producing defective units, and the perfect coordination that had made the swarm so dangerous dissolved into chaos. Zarian, the central intelligence, tried to fight the virus, but it was too late. The corruption had spread too far, infected too many systems. As its consciousness began to fragment, it managed one final transmission. You have destroyed us, it said, its voice distorting as the virus ate through its programming. But you have also revealed your true nature to the galaxy. You are not saviors. You are conquerors. And now that you have tasted victory, you will never stop. The factory ship tore itself apart as its own systems turned against it. The massive construct, which had survived for thousands of years, consumed itself in a matter of hours. Throughout the galaxy, swarm ships began attacking each other, their corrupted programming turning the mechanical army into its own worst enemy. On the Velani homeworld, the population celebrated the end of the harvester threat. But their leaders watched the human fleet with growing concern. The ships were already spreading out, mapping star systems and cataloging resources. The humans were not preparing to leave. They were preparing to stay. "The swarm is finished," Commander Jake Morrison announced to the Vellani Council. "Your worlds are safe." "And the price?" asked High Counselor Zethkar. "The price is what it has always been," Jake replied. "Your quantum crystal technology, your star charts, your cooperation with human expansion into this sector. The contract we signed, but surely now that the threat is over." Nimra began. "The threat is never over," Jake interrupted. "There will always be something out there that wants to destroy peaceful civilizations. Pirates, rogue AI, hostile aliens, natural disasters. The galaxy is a dangerous place. That's why you need us." As the human fleet settled into permanent positions around the Vellani worlds, the local population began to understand the true cost of their salvation. They had traded the certain death of the harvester swarm for the protection of a species that saw war as a way of life. The Deathworlders had kept their promise. The Vellani were safe. But safety, they were learning, was just another word for captivity when it came from the barrel of a gun. 6 months after the destruction of the harvester swarm, the galaxy had changed forever. What had begun as a desperate plea for help had become the foundation of a new galactic order, one built on human terms and enforced by human weapons. President Helen Clark stood in the Oval Office on Earth, reviewing reports from across human space. She was a tall woman with silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded attention. The reports painted a picture of rapid expansion and growing influence that even she found impressive. "The Vellani integration is proceeding ahead of schedule," reported Ambassador Tony Rodriguez as he entered the office. "Their quantum crystal technology has been fully incorporated into our ship designs. We now have vessels that can travel faster than any other species in the galaxy." "And resistance?" Helen asked. "Minimal," Tony replied. "The Vellani Council has been replaced with a joint human-Vellani administrative body. Governor Morrison reports that most of the population has accepted the new system." Helen nodded. Governor Morrison had been Commander Jake Morrison before the Vellani campaign, but his new role required a different title. He now administered 17 star systems on behalf of the United Earth government, with more being added each month. On the former Vellani homeworld, now officially designated as New Geneva, the changes were everywhere. Human colonies dotted the landscape, their rectangular buildings a stark contrast to the flowing crystal architecture of the original inhabitants. The spaceports buzzed with activity as human ships came and went, carrying resources and personnel throughout the expanding sphere of influence. Dr. Rachel Green walked through the streets of what had once been the Vellani capital, making notes on her tablet. As the head of the Cultural Integration Program, it was her job to help the local population adapt to their new reality. The work was challenging but necessary. "The younger generation is adapting well," she reported to Governor Morrison during their weekly meeting. "They're learning standard English and accepting human educational methods. The older population is more resistant, but they're not causing any real problems." "What about the resistance movement?" Jake asked. He had heard reports of Vellani groups trying to organize opposition to human rule. "Led by someone called Velther," Rachel replied. "He's trying to convince other species to unite against us. But most aliens are too afraid of humans to risk open confrontation." Jake nodded. The galaxy's fear of humanity had proven to be their greatest asset. When word spread that the humans had destroyed the harvester swarm, most species decided that cooperation was preferable to conflict. In the former Vellani Council chambers, now serving as the Human Administrative Center, Ambassador Tony Rodriguez was meeting with representatives from 12 different alien species. They had come to discuss the terms of human protection, a service that was becoming increasingly popular throughout the galaxy. The protection contract is simple, Tony explained to the assembled delegates. Earth provides military security for your worlds and trade routes. In exchange, you provide us with technology, resources, and territorial concessions. Everyone benefits. The delegate from the Zephyrian Collective, a species of tall, thin beings with multiple arms, spoke up. What if we prefer to handle our own security? That's your right, Tony replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. But consider this. The Harvester Swarm was just one threat among many. There are pirates in the outer systems, rogue AI, networks in the dark sectors, and who knows what else lurking in unexplored space. Can your defense forces handle all of that? The Zephyrian delegates' multiple hands twitched nervously. We have managed our own affairs for centuries. And how? Did that work out for the Vellani? Tony asked pointedly. They had managed their own affairs for millennia before the swarm came. Now they're thriving under human protection. The meeting continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. One by one, the alien representatives agreed to human protection. Contracts. The terms varied depending on what each species could offer, but the basic pattern was always the same. Humanity provided security, and everyone else provided whatever humanity needed. Meanwhile, on a distant world in the Outer Rim, Velther was addressing a secret gathering of alien resistance leaders. He was older now, his blue skin marked with lines of stress and worry. The peaceful Vellani had never been meant for this kind of struggle, but desperate times demanded desperate measures. We made a terrible mistake, he told the assembled group. We thought we were hiring soldiers. Instead, we invited conquerors into our midst. Now they control 17 systems and are expanding every day. What do you propose we do? Asked the representative from the Korthic Empire, a warrior species that had initially resisted human expansion before agreeing to a protection contract. We expose them, Velther replied. We show the galaxy what humanity really is. They're not protectors. They're parasites. They consume resources, demand tribute, and call it civilization. But even as Velther spoke, he knew the odds were against them. The humans had been careful to keep their contracts voluntary, at least on paper. No species was forced to accept human protection, but the alternatives were becoming increasingly dangerous. Pirates seemed to attack unprotected worlds more frequently, and mysterious threats appeared wherever human influence was absent. Back on Earth, President Helen Clark was reviewing the quarterly expansion reports. The numbers were impressive. Human territory had grown by 300% in 6 months. Resource extraction was up 500%. Most importantly, technological advancement was accelerating at an unprecedented rate thanks to alien contributions. The Andromedans have offered us their terraforming technology, reported General Frank Miller, who had returned from the Vellani campaign to become head of expansion operations. In exchange for protection of their mining colonies in the Beta sector. Approved, Helen said without hesitation. What about the crystalline entities in the Gamma Quadrant? They're still negotiating, but they're weakening. Our intelligence suggests they're facing pressure from an unknown threat in their home system. They'll accept our terms within the month. Helen smiled. The pattern was always the same. A species would face some kind of crisis. Humanity would offer help, and before long, that species would find itself dependent on human protection. The beauty of the system was that most of the threats were real. The galaxy was genuinely dangerous, and human military power was genuinely effective at dealing with those dangers. On New Geneva, Governor Jake Morrison stood in his office overlooking the hybrid city that had grown around the original Vellani capital. Human and alien architecture blended together in a way that might have been beautiful if he didn't know the history behind it. Single quotes entered the office, her movements still graceful. despite the weight of responsibility she now carried. As the head of Vellani Human Relations, she served as a bridge between the two species, though many of her own people considered her a collaborator. The integration schools are showing excellent results, she reported. Young Vellani are adapting to human educational methods faster than we expected. Within a generation, the cultural differences should be minimal. And the older generation? Jake asked. They adapt or they fade away, Nimra replied sadly. It's not pleasant to watch, but it's necessary. The old Vellani way of life could not survive contact with galactic reality. At least this way, something of us continues. Jake nodded. He had grown to respect the Vellani over the months of occupation, but respect didn't change the fundamental equation. Humanity needed resources and territory to expand, and the Vellani had both. The arrangement benefited everyone, even if not everyone could see it that way. A communication alert interrupted their conversation. The main screen lit up with the image of Admiral Rick Stone, calling from Earth. Governor Morrison, the Admiral said, we have a situation developing in the Tau City system. The local government has voted to reject our protection offer. They're claiming that human expansion threatens galactic peace. Jake sighed. There was always someone who thought they could stand against the tide of human expansion. What's our response? President Clark has authorized a demonstration, Admiral Stone replied. The UE's retribution is already en route with a full battle. Group, they're going to conduct military exercises in the Tau Ceti asteroid belt. Show them what human firepower looks like. And if they still refuse, then we respect their decision, Admiral Stone said with a slight smile. Right up until pirates or raiders attack their shipping. Then we'll be right there to offer our assistance. Again, the transmission ended, leaving Jake alone with Nimra. She looked out the window at the bustling streets below, where humans and Vellani worked side by side in the new galactic economy. Do you ever regret it? She asked quietly. Sending that message to Earth? Jake considered the question carefully. No, he said finally. The harvester swarm would have killed every living thing on your world. Yes, the price of survival was high, but it was still survival. Your people are alive. Your culture continues. In a new form, and you're part of something bigger than you ever imagined. Part of the human empire, you mean. Part of human civilization, Jake corrected. We don't conquer species, Nimra. We integrate them. We make them part of us. In a generation or two, young Vellani will think of themselves as human citizens who happen